Mike, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry began threatening to pull out of talks last week. Two sides were in intense negotiations through the weekend, but couldn't make enough progress to satisfy the U.S. As casualties mount and violence shows no sign of ending in Aleppo, Syria, the U.S. has suspended bilateral ceasefire negotiations with Russia.
The United States spared no effort in negotiating and attempting to implement an arrangement with Russia aimed at reducing violence, providing unhindered humanitarian access, and degrading terrorist organizations operating in Syria, including Daesh and al-Qaeda in Syria. Unfortunately, Russia failed to live up to its own commitments.
But Russia says it's the U.S. that hasn't fulfilled its end of the bargain.
Washington has simply failed to live up to the key commitment under the agreements to facilitate the humanitarian assistance to residents of Aleppo. And now the Americans are apparently trying to shift the responsibility to somebody else.
Moscow blames Washington for not separating the U.S.-backed opposition fighters from terrorists like the group known until recently as al-Nusra Front. The U.S. State Department admits it has not been able to achieve that goal.
You know, the United States continued to have detailed, ongoing discussions with members of the opposition, emphasizing our view on the importance of demobilizing, of pulling apart from Nusra. Our view on that is Nusra is al-Qaeda in Syria. They are a terrorist group. As we said, it was never going to be fast. It was never going to be easy, and we were working hard towards that goal.
Meantime, the humanitarian situation in Aleppo grows more dire as hope for a ceasefire fades.
It's a matter of determination. Are we going to give up on the Syrians? Are we going to give up on 350,000 people? Never. So,
though the bilateral talks have been suspended, the U.S. will continue to work with Russia through multilateral talks at the United Nations, Mike.
So, Jim, what does this mean in terms of these bilateral talks? Can they get them back on track at any point?
Yeah, regarding especially this sticky issue of the U.S.-backed opposition working with al-Nusra Front, it may simply be the case that Washington doesn't have enough influence with the opposition to force them to separate from the terrorist groups. That appears to be a clear line for Russia in these negotiations. And there's no obvious way for the U.S. to exert greater influence over the opposition groups. So bottom line, no clear route to a ceasefire, at least one brokered by the U.S. and Russia.